Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to anti-haul number 5. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you're new to anti-hauls, let me give you a rundown. So I started the tarot tube sort of anti-hauls because I wanted to talk about decks that I had decided not to purchase, but also I wanted to highlight what's great about those decks, why they don't work for me, and also talk about things that are in my current collection that I would reach for maybe instead. It just felt like a fun twist on the concept of an anti-haul to share not only what I'm not buying and why, but also what I love. So the first thing I want to talk about, so the first category in the anti-haul is decks I regret purchasing. So the first of these that I want to talk about is the Botanical Tarot. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here on my phone so that you can take a look at it and see what I mean. The Botanical Tarot is this really gorgeous deck created by Jessica Bott, who is the creator of the Idiosyncra deck, which is a deck I have long lusted after, and the creator of an oracle deck I do have called the Amethyst Oracle. All of her decks that I've seen use this sort of flat vector style artwork, which I'm actually really drawn to. So when her Kickstarter launched for the Botanical deck that was all herbal based, I got pretty excited. And I got more excited because it was going to be a massive sort of super deck. There was going to be, and there is, I shouldn't say there was going to be, there are 5 suits for the tarot, majors, the major arcana, as well as each of the minor arcana represented by different classes of plants. So you have like trees are the majors. Peggy's using the garbage disposal, so just excuse that if you can hear that. I am going to be trying out a new mic soon, so we'll see how that works out. Anyways, back on track. The trees are the majors, and then I think it's like cacti for the wands. I might be getting it all wrong. Anyway, the point is, there are different suits, different types of plants and herbs, and while I love the idea of this, I found it incredibly overwhelming to even think about using, and so this deck sat in a box after I did my walkthrough, and I didn't touch it for months. And I'm like, okay, Lisa, you're not going to be using this. You need to find this a new home. I have since found it a new home, but I just wanted to I really wanted to love it so much, and again, I think it's beautiful to look at. The cardstock's amazing. I think Jessica did an incredible job on this deck. Look at these colors, like, hello. I think it's really good. It just wasn't for me. But here is what I love instead. I have the Herb Crafters Tarot. So I will have links to all the decks I talk about in the description box down below. It does take me a bit to put that together, but I think it's important because a lot of people actually watch my anti-hauls and go buy the decks that I don't like, which I think is amazing because that's what's awesome about tarot. But anyway, okay, back on track. The Herb Crafters Tarot is by Joanna Powell Colbert, and the guidebook is written by Letitia Guthrie. Joanna Powell Colbert is the creator of the Gaian Tarot, which is one that I've never felt particularly drawn to, but this deck is absolutely gorgeous. So it's all herbal and plant-based, but it is, I think it does a better job, I guess, for me in inviting me to learn more about those herbs and those plants. One of the things that I felt was personally missing from the Botanical deck was that the guidebook, I felt, didn't give me enough information to feel like I was learning with that deck. And this one, between the artwork being just very detailed and stunningly gorgeous, totally different art style to be completely fair, but there's something about this artwork that I feel like just, it invites me into the card. Like, I want to know more, I want to study it, I want to work with it. And some of these herbs and some of these cards just immediately speak to me. Like, look at the Hierophant with cacao and the idea of a cacao ritual, which you see sort of here on the table. I feel like there's some here where I just immediately get it, and there's a lot here where I don't. And you can see an example of me trying to work with this deck intuitively in one of my more recent Tarot by the Book videos, more recent being relative, but I will put a link to that up in the cards. It's going to be on, I forget which corner. Up in the eye, you will see a link to my Tarot by the Book where I actually read with this deck intuitively, as well as used the guidebook to get a feel of how it works. The backings are also super pretty. As far as an herbal tarot deck goes, I feel like I don't need a lot of those in my collection, and unless something comes along that blows this out of the water, which frankly I think is kind of unlikely, this is going to be the one for me. It's very smart the way it is done. There's also a really fantastic walkthrough by Sarah over at Sunset Bow Tarot that does a really good job giving you an overview of the system that this deck uses, and I love it. That's probably enough about that deck. I should probably talk less so that we can move on. All right, so the next deck that I regret purchasing, let me pull it up, is the Pathfinder Oracle by Skull Garden. Now let me be clear, this artwork and this deck are incredible, and I was real excited. I backed this on Kickstarter. There's a lot of cool things about this Oracle deck that had me super excited. Number one, I love Skull Garden's artwork. I believe his name, oh, I always forget his name. I want to say it's Andy, but somebody feel free to correct me down below. I absolutely love his Earthbound Oracle, and in fact, I backed this deck, the Pathfinder, at the level that would let me also get Earthbound because I had been lusting after it for a long time. Super excited about that. I actually did a double walkthrough of this deck and Earthbound Oracle together, which if I remember, I will also link up in the eye. I'm pretty sure it's over there. So love them both, love the artwork. If this deck had keywords, like title, not just titles, but like keywords on every card, I may feel quite a bit different. But as you can see, for example, here we have moth. This illustration, or this image actually also sort of illustrates the concept behind the deck. So you essentially have a diamond shaped deck. It's essentially square, but you turn it to a diamond, and there are moon phases represented in each of the corners, and you shuffle it in such a way that however you draw it, whatever moon phase is up is the one that you would read the entry in the guidebook. And there are short entries. There's a positive, a negative, an active, and a passive meaning. Now this is really cool, and it seems kind of based on the same mechanics you might use in a round tarot deck, where upright, you would have upright, reversed, and then sort of pushing or pulling, or again, active or passive sort of energies. I loved that idea. I really wanted to work with it. The problem I had is I didn't find this to be a great intuitive reader for me in very many cases. I have the little mini, which I gave to Peggy, she's obsessed with any kind of deck that is a different size than standard. So real big, real small, she loves them. So I gave her the little mini oracle, but the oracle doesn't even have titles on it. So it's just the artwork with the moon phase symbols. I wanted so bad to love this deck, and it is beautifully produced. Again, gorgeous cardstock. It's an independent deck. You can still buy it now on his Etsy shop. It's really neat. Look at this with the diamond. It's so cool, but I was just not. I found that most of the time with Oracle decks, I really need them to have titles. I really need them to have not just titles, but keywords. That's what I was trying to say. I was distracted by things. But not just titles, but keywords. So I feel like what I need is to see, if it says moth, I want to have like just a simple keyword that reminds me what this card represents to the deck creator. Because while I can work with decks without keywords, especially when the art is, I think, really funky, which this art does go in a really cool creative direction, it would be nice to have something to just remind me what the guidebook has to say when I want to just work with the deck, right? So I found that nowadays I tend to be a lot more careful what decks, Oracle decks I pick up, and whether or not they have just titles or keywords. That was a lot of words about that. What I love instead is the Earthbound Oracle. So this one I think still has that sort of earthy, naturey vibe that deck does. The art style is totally different, the coloration is different, but I absolutely adore this deck. I've talked about it a bunch on my channel. I'm pretty sure this is still available. This is by Claire Mack. She's a Seattle-based artist. I first saw this on Samantha Menzo's channel, and I fell in love as she fell in love as she was flipping through this deck. And I bought it right away. Like, I bought it while I was watching her video. There's something about this deck that I feel like connects me with the natural world, connects me with nature, connects me with sort of that earthier, more grounded energy that I feel like Pathfinder Oracle made me think of when I tried to work with it. But this one just sort of speaks my speak, and instead of titles, so instead of telling me what's on the card, there's a keyword. So it doesn't say wolf and moon, right? Like it says grief. You know, this card, cosmos. Okay, I know some of them may seem more title-ish. I don't know how to describe what the difference is in some of these. Deluge, resistance, look at reincarnation, right? Just absolutely stunning. This deck, really cool, and it's one that I have used a bunch. It works great in all kinds of readings, and I just find it to be really versatile. It's one that I always feel comfortable reading with intuitively, and especially I think with Oracle decks, I want them to read well intuitively. Because while I enjoy working with guidebooks, if I'm going to pull it out for a client reading or if I'm going to pull it out to do divination with, I don't want to feel dependent on the guidebook. And I think that's the difference. While I love working with guidebooks, I don't want to feel like I need them to work with the deck. So that is the Earthbound Oracle. So another deck that I wanted to talk about regretting the purchase of is the Stolen Child Tarot by Monica Knighton. I want to be very clear. I'm so glad that I backed this deck because this deck needs to exist. I think it's really important. I think it's beautiful. I think it's special, and I think it's unique. I just knew I wasn't going to read with it. So I'm glad that it was backed and that it exists. Again, the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. If you don't know, the Stolen Child Tarot was based on the poem by W.B. Yeats called The Stolen Child. And I actually filmed a walkthrough of this deck that I didn't comment on the like on the symbology in the cards. Instead, I did a flip through to music and I read the poem The Stolen Child by W.B. Yeats. In fact, I may have read the poem through twice. I can't remember how long it took me to flip through all the cards. And I found that to be just a really magical, special experience. And then I was kind of done with the deck. I know that may sound crazy, but there was something about the way the art is done. I think it's incredibly special for somebody who wants to dive into tarot and read more intuitively and basically just read what's on the card. There's a lot of this really amazing, oops, I wanted to go to the next image. There's a lot of really beautiful and like kind of emotive fae-like energy to this deck, which was definitely intentional. Really, really gorgeous. I love the soft colors, but I didn't find that the way that I view the cards was represented in the artwork the way that I wanted it to be. And that is completely personal taste, which I think is important to point out. There is a digital guidebook you can get with the deck, but it does come just by itself. And then there's a QR code, you can kind of see it in this image, where you can scan that, or you can go to the website and you can download the digital guidebook. But I didn't find that the digital guidebook helped me to tie together what I see of, say, what's a good example? We'll say the ten of oak, which is the 10 of pentacles. So the guidebook didn't help me to tie this specific image in with what I know the 10 of pentacles or the 10 of earth to mean in the tarot. And so there was a disconnect for me, and it just wasn't gonna happen. Was not going to happen. I actually ended up giving this deck away on my channel in a recent giveaway, which is something I do tend to do sometimes with decks that are newer, that don't get a lot of use in my collection, but that I want to rehome to a really fantastic home. So that was kind of fun. But this is beautiful. It is still available, and if this artwork is calling to you, definitely check it out. I think it's really, really gorgeous. What I reach for, or I think I would tend to reach for instead of a deck like this, is my Forest of Enchantment Tarot, which I currently have in this gorgeous tree bag. This deck is really beautiful. It is a Llewellyn mass market deck, so of course the cardstock is that sort of thinner, but it shuffles really nicely, kind of glossy cardstock. This deck has a real sort of magical forest, fairy tale world kind of feel to it. But I absolutely love the way these cards are depicted. I feel like it really speaks to the way that I view the tarot, and I think it reads well intuitively while also pulling you in to kind of a magical world, right? And that's, I think, what I wanted Stolen Child to do for me, and it just wasn't doing that for me personally. But this deck does it very, very well. This one is by Linnea Weatherstone. I know there's another person to credit. I don't know, but I believe it was Linnea Weatherstone did the artwork. I'm sure I'm missing a credit there, but I don't have the book nearby. In any case, I will have a link to this deck down below as well. It is a mass market deck. It's affordable. It's currently available, and I think it's really, really beautiful. I still need to edge mine. I haven't done it yet, but it is on my to be modified list. So, well, my mental list. I should make a physical list. Maybe then I'd actually get to my mods. Moving right along. So next category up is currently available mass market decks that I'm not gonna buy. So let's take a look at the first of these. So let me pull the images up. Oh, what do I have here? Oh yes, okay. So let's take a look at the Star Tarot 2nd edition. I don't have a ton of card images. I just have basically this cover image essentially of the 2nd edition of the Star Tarot. Now I have to say I was really excited about this edition of this deck. I was really, really excited because the original had these giant borders on it. It was glossy. This one was coming out matte with 3 sides borderless and just a border on the bottom with the title of the card, and I was really excited about that. The sticking point came for me in 2 well, I guess 3 areas. One, it came out gilded in gold, which just annoyed me because I felt like with the backings of this deck, and even with the coloration you can see here on the cover as well, even though the text of the title here, the Star Tarot, is gold, the backings of the cards, which I don't have a good picture here, so I can't really show you. The backings of the cards, I guess, why don't they have more images on Schiffer? Okay, well, anyway. The backings are like basically whites and blues, and I feel like if you were going to gild this deck, gilding it in silver would have just made more sense. So there was just a part of me that was just like low-key annoyed by that. And also, the cardstock, from what I understand, and this is just extrapolation, I don't know if this is true, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think this cardstock is incredibly similar to the Shadowland Tarot, which I recently acquired and is by the same publisher. And the Shadowland Tarot, while I think it's lovely, the cardstock is very thick and kind of stiff. It's hard to describe. The deck actually came bowed a little bit. There's something about that cardstock that feels like cardboardy. It doesn't have a lot of flex to it, and the coating on it is a little bit less smooth than I like, and I know this all sounds incredibly snobby about cardstock, but I didn't want to purchase this if I wasn't going to aesthetically absolutely love it, because I already have the Star Tarot in the first edition, and I love my first edition copy, which I have modified so that it works really great for me, and I needed the second edition to be a luxuriously smooth, awesome cardstock, and either no gilding or silver gilding or something. It needed to be perfect for me to buy a deck that I already have, essentially. So this is what the backings of the first edition Star Tarot have. Of course, this is the deck I'm going to reach for instead, which I think goes without saying. I trimmed all the borders off of my cards, and then I used a silver Sharpie to note the Roman numeral if it was a major arcana, so this is the Hierophant card. Or to note the, oh, that's another major arcana. There we go. Or to note the number and the alchemical elemental symbol. Oh my goodness. I'm back. Totally dropped that. That is the Ace of Pentacles, anyways, that I was holding up. But the thing about this is that since I put so much effort into both edging it, isn't the colors pretty? I trimmed the colors on the sides to match the bag that it lives in. But not only did I edge it and trim all the borders off, but I spent a lot of time bonding with this deck, and it's a really nice size. Yes, I would love the artwork to be bigger, but this cardstock is really enjoyable to shuffle. Once you have one of these glossy decks for a while, they slide really nicely, so I don't have any issues with sticking. It's a really nice deck. I love the sort of simple backings, and I just realized that there wasn't going to be enough motivation for me to reach for a second edition without it having a huge step up in the feel of it, if that makes any sense. So it wasn't worth it to me just for the bigger artwork, because my trimmed copy is very easy for me to pick out the details and see it. There was a part of me that almost was tempted because the idea of having a second edition of the guidebook, which this deck's guidebook is out of this world. It is so well done. So that was tempting, but beyond that, not so much. So I'm going to just continue working with my first edition Star Tarot. I'm very itchy. I actually had a very similar experience with the Mary L. When the Mary L came out second edition, I had already gotten so bonded with my first edition Mary L Tarot that I had trimmed and modified almost exactly like this, that I just couldn't bring myself to spring for a second edition. There wasn't enough about it that excited me to get me over the hump of wanting to not work with the one that I bonded with, if that makes any sense. Next up, in mass market decks that are currently available that I am not going to buy, we have the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann Donnelly, which, holy cow, is on sale right now. Okay, ignore the shipping and import fees to Canada. If you are in the States, it is currently on sale for $18.99 at the time I'm filming this, which may not be on sale by the time you watch this, but still, that seems like a really low price. This deck, you know, I have looked at this deck a lot because I backed the Light Seers Tarot when it was out on Kickstarter, which was another deck that came out at the same time by Chris Ann Donnelly, and you could back for just the Light Seers, just the Muse, or both at that time. And Chris Ann did such an amazing job with that Kickstarter campaign, and it was really tempting. There were a few things about this deck. Are there not more photos? There's not more photos. That's it. Well, anyway, there was a few things about this deck that stopped me from purchasing it. And I don't have a photo to show you, but the one thing that stopped me was that the kings of this deck, I forget what they're called, but the kings of this deck are landscape. Everything else in the deck is portrait orientation, so upright, but the kings go sideways. And that just annoys me. I don't think I can see past that. And I know that sounds incredibly shallow, but I do have a very big collection, so I felt like I don't need to see past it. So why would I? I do think this art is really beautiful. I also think that this deck sort of lends itself to people who consider themselves creatives, who want a deck that's going to help them connect to their creativity. I think there's something really spectacular about this deck. I think the colors are incredible, the artwork is beautiful, but I knew this would not be a deck that I would reach for. What I will reach for, I think, instead of this one, let's make sure I haven't lost my spot on my list, is the Textured Tarot by Lisa McLaughlin. Okay, you guys, I love this deck. I've talked about this deck a lot on my channel because it is still one of my all-time favorites. There's something so cool about this deck, something so well done. I've edged mine to match the backs in this dark gray color, and it came out really good. The only beef I actually have with this deck is the cardstock. While it is thick and it feels sturdy, it's not sturdy. And the reason it's not sturdy is because it is so stiff that if you try to riffle shuffle it, as I love to riffle shuffle all of my decks, you crease it. It folds. It doesn't bend. It's like a coreless kind of cardstock, and that's a real shame. I wish these would come out in like a linen cardstock or even just a smooth matte sort of flexible cord cardstock, something that you could actually riffle and work with. That being said, you would have to pry this out of my cold dead hands because I love this deck so much. And the reason I would reach for this instead of the Muse is because it still has this really cool collage art kind of concept to it. The colors I think are still really vivid. It's not nearly as sort of bold and bright as the Muse Tarot is, but it's still that sort of collagey feel. It still feels modern. It still feels diverse, and I feel like in a lot of ways this definitely scratches the itch, and I think you could work with this deck in similar ways as you could work with the Muse Tarot. But that said, they are two completely different creations. I love this Ace of Cups so much. I'm like practically smacking the camera with it, but I love it. I also love her. I don't think there's a card in here that I don't like, but I really enjoy working with this deck. It's a wonderful reader for any kind of topic, and it works great with clients. I love this one. So the Textured Tarot by Lisa McLaughlin, again, still available as far as I know on her Etsy shop, so I will try to remember to have a link to that for you down below, as well as links to all the other decks. Yeah, so that's that one. Oh, we are making some good time. It's still gonna be a long video, but we're making some good time. Okay, next up is the Liminal Spirits Oracle, and this one, let me pull up some images here. The Liminal Spirits, okay, so it's currently only $23 in the US right now at the time I'm filming this. Why are there not more pictures? Come on, people, get it together, get your pictures up on Amazon. In any case, the Liminal Spirits is really pretty. Let's just pull up this photo so you can get a feel for what they look like. So, for example, here is the peacock card, and it says peacock. Like, I can see that's a peacock. Mandrake is mandrake. Cave is cave. And I was so disappointed by this because just like I mentioned in the Pathfinder Oracle, I like keywords. I can pretty much visually see what I'm looking at, but if you really want to tell me what I'm looking at, cool, add a keyword. Because I feel like something is missed, and this artwork, you guys, is so beautiful. Now, depending on how you work with cards, this might be spot on for you. You might be cool with just reading this intuitively, and I will say there is a chance, despite me saying that I really wish it had keywords, there's a chance that this deck may be one that finds its way to me at some point because I am so in love with the artwork that I'm almost willing to just get over it. But I feel like it's a missed opportunity, particularly when the artwork is so good. For example, if I see a cauldron, you don't need to tell me it's a cauldron. Give me something else. Give me something. Or give me, I don't know. So that's a personal preference kind of thing. But this deck is so pretty. Laura Tempest Zakroff, Liminal Spirits Oracle. It says Witches Spirit cards. I want this deck so bad, but as soon as I watched the walkthroughs of this deck coming out and I saw that there was titles, not keywords, I found myself mildly turned off. And it's nobody's fault. I think some people love titles on cards like this. And there's tons to work with here. I could think about what does a peacock mean to me and then jump off of that intuitively. So again, is this me being super picky? Yeah, for sure, because I have a big collection, and so I do look at things a lot more critically than maybe somebody else might. But again, beautiful deck, beautiful. I may still change my mind on this one. Don't hold me to it. Instead of Liminal Spirits, I put that I would reach for my Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. This has got artwork by Rasuli. Again, a totally different feel, but this has dreamy, here's what the backings look like. This one has gorgeous, dreamy artwork. I love Rasuli's artwork. Again, we have a title and we also have a subtext. So we kind of have a key message, so say yes to your higher calling, and then underneath that it says be a human exclamation mark. I love this. This gives me a lot as a reader to jump off of. I not only have this beautiful expressive artwork, but I have a couple things I can look at with words to sort of add to this context, add to the context of the reading. So I know what the call is when I'm talking about the hero's journey, which is based on Joseph Campbell. I was about to forget his name. That was bugging me. Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. I know what the call is. I know what that's referring to. And even still, I appreciate the subtext that says, honor the whisper of your soul. I really, really enjoy that. And as a reader, it makes this deck very, very easy to use, particularly when I'm reading quickly with clients where I just want to go, go, go with my intuition and not have to pause and think about, but what does this artwork mean to me? I want to be able to use the artwork, but I want to get going with my words right away. If you've ever booked a client reading with me, then you kind of know what I mean, because when I flip a card in a client reading and I start talking about it, I just go. And if there's a stopping point there, if there's a hesitation, I feel like sometimes it gets in the way between me and my intuition. And I just think this deck does a really beautiful job of giving me something right away to grab hold of, and then I can start to sink into the artwork and pull out more and more and more, because that is my reading style. I sort of grab the initial impression from the keywords or from something really obvious on the image, and then I just talk. And as I talk, I go deeper into the words or I go deeper into the image, and it's the way that I read. So I love, love, love this deck. I use this a lot in client readings. I find that it works really, really well. I've used this both in my past life readings as well as in my personal growth and spiritual growth style readings. So this always hits the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. Love it. Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. This is by Kelly Sullivan Walden and the artwork is by Rasuli. Okay. I think that might be it for this category, and it is. So our next category is currently available independent decks that I'm not going to buy. So the first one of these that I want to talk about is the Dark Days Tarot. Let me just get the website up. Okay, here we go. This is actually a really cool mechanic on the website, by the way, where you can kind of pull cards around and like zoom them in and like play, and then play with them. Oh, I see, you double tap. I don't know how to go back. Oh, you X. Okay. And I'm just excited playing with the mechanic on this website because I think it's pretty cool. This deck is really, really gorgeous. I think if this were not black and white, I might be a little more tempted by it. I think it's really unique. I want to look at this strength card. Yeah, it's really unique. It's really beautiful. It's really diverse, and it's got this really funky, empowering sort of feel to it. I'm not overly drawn to this style of artwork, to be completely fair. If you take a look at my walkthrough of the Divina Tarot, which I rehomed recently, I'll put a link to that walkthrough up in the if I have enough thingies left. Otherwise, I'll try to remember to put a link to it down below, or you can search my channel. But the Divina Tarot has a similar kind of sketchy kind of black and white style artwork, and there's something about that I just find I don't tend to resonate with as much as I want to. What's this card? Oh, see, this totally is like fallopian tubes, womb, and it's the Queen of Cups. I think that's really freaking cool. I could see definitely a very empowering vibe to this deck, and I think there's a lot of people that will get some really good stuff out of this. I just find that if I'm not connecting or bonding with the artwork, or it doesn't excite me to reach for it, I won't reach for it. And that just means it's going to be neglected in an already very big collection. So I instead put, and this is kind of fun because this is similar color scheming, what I would reach for instead is my Gorgon's Tarot. The Gorgon's Tarot is a really, really cool deck, black and white still. I do have the fuller sized version. This actually has much larger cards normally. There's a red-breasted robin that just popped up to the roof, and I can see him on my window, and I love it when that happens when I'm filming videos, but also I'm very distracted. He's like having a little snack. I don't want to look away. Okay, we're gonna try. He's so cute though. Okay, anyway. The Gorgon's Tarot, normally the cards are much larger. This is a limited edition smaller size that they put out. I still have to re-edge the cards. Much more manageable in this size. This is a really cool deck, and I did a detailed deep dive into these cards. I really love them. I think they're incredibly empowering. I think they're wonderful for personal growth type readings. I think they're really wonderful for... He's still there, okay. I think he's moving on now. I find these to read really well intuitively despite the fact that they're black and white. And I actually think one of the things I like about this deck is that it's black and white with all these fun, funky patterns and like textures in the cards. Like, I don't know if you can see, all the spaces have these different textures in them. Sometimes you get plain white or plain black colors, but then you also get these textures. There's like something flat and kind of funky, and it doesn't, to me, it's almost like if you were to take like a vector graphic style deck and make it black and white. That's what, I got an itchy nose. That's what this makes me think of. So I don't know, this art style and me, we get along real good, but me and the Dark Days art style don't get along as well. I don't know. I can't figure me out either. But this one is really great, and the little guidebook that comes with it is really great. It's worth it even with the larger, harder to manage cards, because I think it's really special and really unique and very well done. But I love that deck. I love the Gorgon's Tarot. Okay, next up in independent decks that I'm not going to buy is the Hayworth Tarot. Let me just pull this up. So if you have watched me and Danny and Dustin do our Three Fat Readers chat, I'm pretty sure this came up during one of the Three Fat Readers chats. Danny and Dustin both love this deck. I have an aversion to this deck, and I want to be very clear. The artwork is incredibly well done. This deck is just not me in so many ways. I don't even know where to start, but it's very sort of horror themed. At least that's how it feels to me. Very kind of horror themed. Of course, these are all like super innocuous cards. Okay, so this one's pretty freaky and weird. Yeah, like he's like, I just can't with this deck, you guys. I can't. I mean, they don't have heads. That one's okay. But no, that's the strength card. Just no. Okay, if you like this kind of thing, if you love like comic booky kind of horror, gothic kind of theme, okay, maybe not gothic, horror themed kind of stuff, this may be right up your alley, but this disturbs me to look at. So it's my delicate sensibilities clearly at play here. But from the people who love it, and that includes Danny and Dustin over at Modern Metaphysique and Danny at Danny Mystic, if you don't know who I'm talking about, they both love this deck. And they could speak at you a lot about the coolness of it, the symbology of it. I just can't even look at it. So that's just on me. I mean, I guess it's not too surprising given my general aesthetic of cute and adorable. But creepy and me, we have a tricky relationship. However, in my current collection, I do have a deck that kind of fills this niche, sort of, kind of, but in a playful, funny way, and that is my Zombie Tarot. I love working with this. I tend to work with it around Halloween time, but to be completely honest, it reads great at any time of year. The Zombie Tarot, this is what the backs look like. I wish they had different backs. Not so much a fan of that. Love the way I edged this deck. It's got like a really cool, funky effect. This is kind of like a retro, sort of 1950s style deck. It's so fun. I've talked about it a bunch. There's some gore and some horror in here, I suppose, but it's got this kind of like not taking itself, my nose is so itchy, not taking itself too seriously, but yet it reads so well. This deck gives incredible readings. It's really smart. Everything depicted here makes so much sense. I'm just looking through it and not even sharing now. How mean, I know. For example, 9 of Cups, and she's all sheltered. She's got all she needs. She's got food, she's got supplies, she's set. All her wishes are fulfilled, right? Like, it's a very well done, intelligent deck. So even though there is some like kind of creepy, scary, I guess, elements, the 7 of Swords, where the girl literally kicks her, I'm assuming, husband or boyfriend down the stairs to buy herself some time. Like, I mean, it's smart, it's funny, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and so I can deal with the kind of creepy, gory side of it because it's low-key, right? So this is probably the creepiest deck I would say I have in my collection as far as gore is concerned, because there are like brains and body parts and things in this. So that's the only thing I can think of that would be like in the same arena. But that is the Zombie Tarot. It is by, who is it by? Quirk Books. Philadelphia. The instructions are by Stacey Graham and the illustrations are by Paul Keppel and Ralph Garoni of Headcase Design. Also, the guidebook for this is super great, and the box that this deck comes in is also really fun. It's a very, very smart deck, and it's mass market, it's affordable. I think everybody should have a copy of this if they're even remotely attracted to it, because I think it's so unique and fun. Okay. Next up in mass market decks that I'm not going to buy is... Oh no, excuse me. Independent decks I'm not going to buy. Yes, independent decks. Is the Fox Universe Tarot and Oracle, I guess it's called? Fox Universe Tarot, a self-care oracle. Are you a tarot or are you an oracle? Because that's confusing as a name. That said, I actually discovered this deck by watching James Feeney's channel, which if I remember, I'll have a link to his walkthrough of this down below. But this is a really well done deck. It's just, again, it's a black and white deck, and there's some of the themes here I think are really good. If you were looking for a self-care deck that is not as fluffy and as, I would say, overtly kind of female-centric or feminine-centric, this is probably going to be the one for you. I was tempted to pick it up for specifically that reason, actually, because I feel like in the self-care realm, the space tends to be very female feminine-centric, and I think this deck does a good job of sort of addressing key important self-care things that are not just the fluffy side of self-care, and I think that's really smart and really cool. And for all I know, this may still end up in my collection for that reason, because I think it's super unique in that way. Here we have 11, the Warrior Adventure. I think the reason that it calls itself a tarot and an oracle is something to do with the structure. I can't remember, but I feel like this does have sort of majors and then 4 suits. And that could be why. Here we have Recharge, and we have the Wizard of Spoons, which to me makes so much sense, because spoons as an analogy for energy, particularly when we're talking about ability, that just makes so much sense to me. Really beautiful production quality, it looks like, and as far as I remember, the cards are quite a nice size as well. But again, it's primarily black and white, and I just found myself not as attracted to the artwork as I wanted to be, and I feel like the system that it has is not quite speaking to me either. I think it's like trying too hard to be both a tarot and an oracle, and I kind of feel like if it was one or the other, I would be more attracted to it. But again, it takes a lot for me to be drawn to a black and white deck. I love color so much that already is kind of a strike against a deck most of the time, unless it gets me with something else about it that's just really, really smart. And like I said, because there's not a lot of self-care decks that feel more universal, like this one does, I think that alone does make it really special, and it could be one of those decks that ends up in my collection because of that, but I don't know. Right now it's a no for me. It's a no. But instead, I am going to share my more fluffy, colorful self-care oracle deck, which is the one that I'm currently working with primarily in my collection right now, and that is the Sacred Self-Care Oracle by Jill Pyle. Now, I really don't think you can fairly equate, or compare rather, these two decks, and so I'm not going to even try, but I just really like this deck, and for my personal self-care practice, this one works for me. I don't think it's perfect, but I think that it sort of does a really, really good job at what it does. Again, still tends to be, I think, fairly female, feminine-centric for sure, which is a shame because I think that non-binary and masculine people also struggle with self-care, and so sometimes when I see decks being a little too feminine, particularly around themes of empowerment, self-love, and self-care, I get a little bummed because I feel like then people are missing out, right? And this is where I think if this is something you struggle with, now I identify as a very feminine person, this works for me in my personal practice, and it works for clients who, it has worked okay for clients, but I also feel like I need to disclaimer this deck with clients and say, just so you know, it's a very female-centric deck. I just find that the themes in it work really well in a universal way. Make a meal is wonderful self-care. So I feel like I need to disclaimer it, and I wish there was a colorful self-care deck that was more universal. So again, the Fox Universe may end up in my collection for that reason, because that I do feel is a barrier. But for my personal practice, I really love this deck, and I have enjoyed working with it with clients. I just wish that it was more expansive in inclusiveness in that way. So that was a lot of babble. That was a lot of babble. This is going to be a very long video. We're going to roll with it though. It's fine. All right, so I think, is that it? That is it for me for currently available independent decks that I'm not going to buy. Now let's talk about decks that are in pre-order status, and in particular I want to talk about, I think these are all mass market. There's a few decks currently in pre-order status that I have been looking at and have ultimately decided I'm probably not gonna buy. So the first of these is the Barbieri Unicorns Oracle. This is coming out by, I believe, Lo Scarabeo, and it'll be distributed as usual by Llewellyn. It's a unicorn oracle deck, you guys. I had to at least give it a chance, right? But I have to say, this art is, there's something very, I don't want to use the wrong, this card disturbs me, and I'm not entirely sure why. It says not a snowman. The shape of the horn is kind of weirding me out. It's just, there's something about this. It says not a snowman, and then it says mystery. But I kind of feel like this is taking, there's Paolo Barbieri. Okay, Paolo Barbieri's artwork is in calendars. It's pretty to look at, but these are not my unicorns. I don't know how else to say it. It's not that I have a problem with fierce unicorns, but this is a tiger. So this is a tiger unicorn that says not a tiger. Majesty. Do they all say not a something? I just realized. Yep, not a constellation. Hope. I don't know, you guys. No, this is a no for me. This isn't speaking to me at all. I feel like the characters, like the humanoid type people that are in here, are very body beautiful, and the women seem to be kind of sexualized, which is not uncommon for this style of artwork, but I find more and more that I just tend to not be drawn to decks that have this kind of artwork. I like to see something that feels a little more like natural, real people, kind of. Even if it's not super body diverse, if it's too like hyper like video game girls kind of thing, it just tends to be a bit of a turnoff. However, there is a Unicorn Oracle deck in my current collection that I do really love, and that is my Unicorn, Oracle of the Unicorns, I think is what it's called. And the funny thing about this is that it is all pre-existing artwork, which to me, normally, I don't always get on with decks that have pre-existing artwork, which I think it's important to say that this Paolo Barbieri deck is also pre-existing artwork that's then been given meanings for an Oracle deck. But this one, maybe it's because I just love all of the artwork in it so much, but it really works for me. And there's like a main keyword, and then there's a few like subtext kind of like little messages. I really enjoy working with this deck. I think it's absolutely stunning. I love the high gloss. I don't know why. It makes it feel like unicorn photos, I guess. I love the way that I've edged this deck to match the backings of the cards. I really enjoy working with this. And I recognize a lot of the artwork from fantasy art that I've seen. I have a, is this the one? Yeah, this card, this artwork actually is also in my, this is Jody Bergsma Spirit of the Animals Oracle. I'm pretty sure it's the same artwork. But I really love the artwork in this deck. And there are some unicorns here that look a little less soft and fluffy. This Strength Unicorn is a good example. And then there's some that are sort of really classic. This is so Lisa Frank to me. Maybe not that bad, but not, oh, dropping cards. Yeah, like I have a phone decal, or had a phone decal that matched this artwork. So like, I don't know, I really love this. I think it's beautiful. I really actually enjoyed the messages and the keywords in this deck, so I think they're chosen well. And yeah, that is the one that I will reach for instead. My pile of decks next to me is a little bit nuts. Just had to say that. Okay, next up in pre-ordered decks that I'm not gonna buy, and we're getting into a couple where I might get called out later because I might change my mind, but we'll see. We'll see. So the first one I want to talk about is the next one I want to talk about rather. It's the Heaven and Earth Tarot. Let me bring up the imagery here. Again, not enough imagery. This is, well, you can see. This deck looks absolutely breathtaking, as does the full color guidebook with giant images of the deck. The backs of the cards looks really beautiful. I think this is going to be a really gorgeous, like, Rider-Waite-Smith clone type deck. I love everything about this. The thing is, and I drooled hard about this deck when I first spotted it in the Llewellyn catalog for 2020. But I have to say, as much as I think this is a breathtaking deck, and it's going to be a gorgeous set, and it will be a great reader, and it'll work great for clients, and blah, 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 blah. As much as I love this, I have another deck that is stunning, and also has these kinds of like grayish, earthy, kind of like toned down colors in it. And I'm going to talk about that deck in a moment. But even that deck, which I think is stunning and so beautifully done, I very rarely reach for it because I'm just naturally drawn to more vibrant decks or more modern decks or more playful decks. And so I don't want to add another deck to my collection that may get neglected the way that this one does, which again, this is what I'll reach for instead because it's kind of in the same category to me. This is the Pagan Otherworlds deck by Usi. This is just such a classically stunning deck. I do not regret this purchase one little bit. However, I will say that there's something about these colors and this very classic, as stunning as these paintings are, I don't find myself naturally gravitating to this deck the way somebody else might. And I think that really is because it's got this very sort of old world mature feel. And y'all, that is not me. I mean, there are situations where this feels like the right deck to reach for, but they tend to be serious, crap is going down situations. But even in those situations, I find myself getting just as much depth of meaning and wonderful readings from decks that are me, that do feel more like fluffy. I mean, I will completely admit that I have actually considered briefly, very briefly, rehoming this deck simply because I don't reach for it very much. But I think that there is something really special about it. I think it did change the way I look at tarot. It did give me a gateway to reading with pip type decks because this does have a really wonderful pip style that still includes enough information, enough of a hint of Rider-Waite-Smith that it's still really enjoyable to work with. But this one's already neglected, so I really have no business bringing in to my collection another deck that is aesthetically stunningly gorgeous, but is just not me. And I was really surprised I added Heaven and Earth Tarot to my anti-haul list because I was so excited when I saw it, but I just recognized that like it's going to end up in the same category as this, where I love it and I appreciate looking at it, but it just doesn't get a lot of play in my collection, and that's not the kind of collection I want to have. I love having lots of variety, yes, but I want to feel like everything that I have is something that I wanted to reach for and work with. And this one I reach for so rarely that I don't want to duplicate that in my collection right now. So that is the Heaven and Earth Tarot. There's one more here that I have to admit that just today, before I got ready to film this, I found out a new piece of information about. So again, I reserve the right to change my mind because I can. But I'm going to put up a picture now. This is the True Heart Intuitive Tarot guidebook and deck. This is by, oh gosh, I need to bring up her name because it matters. Rachel True, excuse me, Rachel True. So first of all, I'll talk about why I am anti-hauling this, and then I will talk about why I'm tempted to not anti-haul it, okay, well anyways. So the True Heart Intuitive Tarot, there's very little information about it so far, but the main reason I decided to anti-haul it was this preview of the card images. They look gorgeous, don't get me wrong, this looks beautiful. This feels like it's just a little muted, and again, I have a very large collection, and I don't reach for any decks that have slightly more muted colors as much as I reach for my more vibrant decks. And that's just like a tiny little like thing. It doesn't, if I didn't have a large collection, that probably wouldn't be a reason. And as I discover more about this deck, again, I may change my mind. Not in love with this box setup. I do kind of like the backs. And what I can see of the artwork, I actually think it's going to be a really cool deck. It almost makes me think of decks like the Spacious Tarot a little bit. I don't know why, but it just kind of does. And there's another one, what's it called? I can't remember. That this also makes me think of. But anyway, I was like, this is one I don't need. I can anti-haul this. And then, right before I go to film this video, I find out from somebody in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group, holler to you because you know who you are, who said that Rachel True is the girl who played Rochelle on The Craft, which if you don't know is a classic 90s witchcraft movie that is everything. And I was like, she did? She created this deck? Now suddenly it's really appealing again. But I do think if I'm being rational, this is not a deck that would get a ton of play in my collection. So with that in mind, what I put down that I would reach for instead is my Starseeker Tarot, which is very new to my collection. I got this in it was a Kickstarter that I backed in 2019. It just came out a little bit ago, and I worked with it, and I love it. This has that same sort of slightly muted color to it. It's got almost like a dusty mauve sort of backing, as you can see, and that matches the sides of the cards. There's some really dark cards in here, like dark in color. But I really, really like this deck. And to me, this feels like it would fill a similar visual. I love this version of the Three of Pentacles. I think it's so smart. But I do have a full walkthrough of this deck up on my channel, so you can get a feel for what I've had to say about every single card. But I just feel like this one is really... Oh no, I just dropped so many cards. I think this one just kind of fills that gap for me, so I don't necessarily need to pick up the True Heart also. I should put this away and hope that I don't think I lost any cards down there. I think we're good. All right, so we're almost at the end. So that is the Starseeker Tarot. Again, I will have links to everything down below. Okay, let's talk now finally about Kickstarters that I did not back. I've been real good. I haven't been as tempted by Kickstarters lately. I think that's partly because I've had enough Kickstarter experiences where things didn't go the way that I wanted them to, or I feel like they took too long, or I spent a lot of money sight unseen a lot of the cards. So I've learned a lot of lessons around Kickstarter. However, that being said, there have been some really cool things on Kickstarter lately, so watch for me to talk about those eventually. But I've been good lately. So there's a couple here that I almost backed and then pulled myself back from. So I'm going to talk about those first. The first one of those is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. Okay, let me pull up some images for you because I think, oops, there we go. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. Okay, Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. Let's pull up some images of these cards. Really super smart. This is a very like LGBTQ friendly deck. There's a lot of really cool sort of fun gender things that are happening here that you don't typically see. There's a lot of like sort of, I think, very artful nudity. There's also a little bit of sort of naughty vibe to this deck as well. There's a lot about this that really caught my attention, and I will fully admit this is a deck that I clicked back on impulsively right around the time that all of the fun things around the globe started happening, and there was some like financial like uncertainty, and then I'm like, I probably shouldn't, so I did withdraw my pledge. I hate doing that, just for the record. I've done it a couple of times and I hate it because I know what it does to creators when they're like, I got a backer, and then that backer backs out and they're like, oh, it's such an emotional roller coaster for them, and I hate that. But my financial picture was a little bit like, I don't know, so let's wait. I am ultimately glad that I did pull out of this one because as beautiful as this deck is, there is sort of a monotone quality to each suit, which I think is really cool. Like the cups have this shade of blue through them. Is this the swords? The swords have red. That bothers me a little bit because I would have wanted that to be wands. What color do swords have then? Let's see. Uh-oh, there we go. Oh, wands have yellow. So to me, those two are reversed, which I actually didn't notice until now. So that's also a thing that I think would have kind of annoyed me mildly. Pentacles are this kind of orangey peach color. That's fine. Probably would have preferred green, but I think it works. I do think this is a really smart deck. Again, if you're looking for a really classy, sort of artsy feeling deck that also has great representation of different sort of genders and sexualities, this one could definitely work. I just realized again, this felt a little grown up for my aesthetic, which tends to be a little cuter or a little more bright in color and a little bit more fresh. I guess I don't know how else to say it, but this is a very skillful deck, and I believe it succeeded in like a major way. Let's see, there was 1,500 backers, or almost, and $113,000 in this campaign backed. So it was a very successful campaign. I'm sure that the people who backed this deck are going to be thrilled with it, and if this artwork speaks to you at all, check it out because I think this artist is really incredible. And again, these are beautifully illustrated cards, just a little bit too lacking in color for me to get excited about. So I am ultimately glad that I did not back that one. Another one that I want to talk about that was a similar experience for me. I got very swept up in the excitement of the campaign, and that is the Keymaster Tarot. So here, full disclosure, the thing that got me the most excited about this deck, y'all, is the box. It's the box. So it's got, and the box is like one of these like upgraded things. Oh my goodness. I don't know what SEK is. I think that's oh, it's Swedish. It must be Swedish Kronos? Somebody Swedish is gonna yell at me. I think that's what it is. But anyways, in Swedish money, this was over $1 million funded, which was, it looks like about 5 times, more than 5 times its original, or more than 4 times its original goal. I can math, I can. 1,000 backers. this is what the box looks like. Look at this box. And this is an upgraded box. So you have to actually back in an upgraded level to get this box, but this box just gave me all the feelings. This deck is so cool. It merges sort of playing card pips with the minor arcana. Let me see if I can find a picture that shows that. Yeah, here we go. So this picture, I'm gonna zoom in. You can see you've almost got this like Marseille sort of gilded symbol for the Eight of Cups. Actually, I don't know what that is. It's like a sigil overlaying a playing card sort of arrangement, because hearts are actually cups, so I don't know how that works. And you do have this sort of playing card feel. Again, King of Clubs, who would be our King of Wands. King of Wands. I can do this. But I found that to back it at the level that would get me the super awesome resin box, which, look at this box. I just can't. I wanted this box so bad. But I mean, should I buy a tarot deck just for the box? No. I was super tempted though, y'all. So tempted. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was really going to be expensive. That said, keep your eyes on this one, because I think it's probably going to be one that a walkthrough will be super enjoyable to watch, whether or not you decide to purchase it. But this deck, it's very pretty. And if you have, if you're like a tarot history buff, if you like seeing like playing cards and tarot come together, this one's going to make you probably pretty excited. That being said, the deck that I think I'm going to end up reaching for instead is one that I don't have yet, so I am going to quickly look it up. It was a lot more affordable, and it had sort of a similar aesthetic in one major way. Let me see if I can pull up a photo of it here. Come on. Where are you? There you are. Okay, so photo should be up on the screen now. This is a classic Rider-Waite-Smith tarot hybrid, and I thought this was so smart and simple and well done. I did have another playing card tarot hybrid called the Arcana Tarot, and I had I haven't rehomed it yet, but it is in my pile to be rehomed. But it had non-illustrated minor arcana, so you had just the playing card pips for the minors, and then you had courts and major arcana, which was cool, and it was black and white. This takes what looks to be Pixie's artwork and overlays the playing cards on top of it. And it's called the Divine in Play. I should have said that. This is called the Divine in Play Tarot. And the borders, what they've done is they've made the major arcana have these like simple black borders, so that if you want to just play with this deck as a playing card deck, you can quickly find the majors and pull them out of the deck, which I think is just super, super smart. And this was super affordable. I think it was like $25, which for an independent or Kickstarter deck is like unheard of. It was incredibly affordable. I went for this, and then I no longer felt bad about not backing the Keymaster. There are two more Kickstarters that I didn't back that I want to talk about in today's anti-haul, and then we are wrapping up this epically long video. So the first one of those is TarotBot. So let me pull up some pictures so you can see the adorableness that is this deck, because it is so cute. It is so cute, and I wasn't really tempted by it on Kickstarter rather. I was tempted by it when people in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group and elsewhere in social media started to post about this deck, and I was like, it's so cute. It is so, so cute. So let's just pull up some graphics that I can here. So this is 15, it's kind of cut off, but that is our devil card. Here is Justice. Here is the Tower. Let's see what else we can pull up here. Here's the High Priestess. I mean, if you look at the backings of these cards too. I mean, like if you like Star Wars, I feel like you would really enjoy this deck. There's something really cool and sort of like dystopian about the world that it shows. It's giving me like Terminator vibes too. I don't know why, but it's cuter than that. It's like kind of cute meets sci-fi, which is super fun. And I have to say, I was pretty tempted. Yeah, here's a bunch more cards. I was pretty tempted. Look at the Lovers. Oh my God. I know it's like not high res because I'm zooming in, but look at the Strength card. It's so cute. But honestly, because I have cuter decks that I would reach for first, and because I'm not necessarily a specifically huge sci-fi fan, I mean, I low-key love Star Trek, and I low-key like some of the Star Wars kinds of things. I'm not like a die-hard sci-fi person, and I felt like with that being the case, I would definitely reach for my other cute decks instead. As an example, y'all know I know and love my Mom's Tarot, which I'm not even going to pull out cards to show you because y'all know this deck and me by now. I also have Joanna's Whispering Spirits Tarot, and these would be decks that I would reach for before I would reach for a TarotBot deck. But I was real tempted for a hot minute, let me tell you. Especially when the walkthrough started coming out and I was like, oh my god, it's so smart and it's so cute. Anyway, let's talk finally the last one. This one will probably break some people's hearts, but there is a Kickstarter going on. At the time I'm filming it, I think the campaign's even still active. Is it? Yes, it's still active. There are 17 days to go at the time I'm filming this, which I may just have like blown apart when I film. I'm definitely filming this ahead. But anyways, okay. This is called the Rainbow Unicorn Tarot. And I really should want this more than I do. I really should. I mean, if you know me at all, you know I'm a diehard unicorn fan. I call you guys my unicorns sometimes, my unicorn family. But I really love this. I really love this, but I just know I won't reach for it because I have something else in my collection that I think I just like more. And gosh darn it if this isn't, like, look at the backs. This is seriously Lisa Frank kind of fun times unicorns. There's something about this that like legit takes me right back to the 90s and like unicorn stickers, and I kind of love the vector flat graphics, which tends to be something I enjoy. I really do like it. I just don't think I'm gonna reach for it because I have my Crystal Unicorn Tarot, and look at this I Believe in Unicorns bag. This is one of the bags I've had the longest. Peggy made me. Crystal Unicorn Tarot. This is also still available as far as I know. This is an independent deck. Super beautiful. I have the first edition, so my colors are just a little bit softer than what's come out in recent editions. But look at the backs. This is essentially just a Rider-Waite-Smith clone with gorgeous pastel colors and unicorns in place of people. And it fits the bill for me. The artwork is really consistent and cohesive throughout, whereas I feel like in the Rainbow Unicorn Tarot, I think because the whole point is that the unicorns are made of different colors, the unicorn colors change card to card, and they like, these are just like their main colors change, but they basically are essentially the same kind of unicorn throughout. It just feels really cohesive. It feels like, I don't know, I just really love this deck. And as it is, shockingly, I don't reach for this deck as much as I thought I might. It's been growing in my collection, like I've been reaching for it more lately, but this is like my unicorn deck. And I also feel like it's actually kind of hard to make a unicorn deck that feels relatable because unicorns are mythological creatures, and as much as you might love unicorns, it's also hard to see facial expressions on them, and there's, I think, things that you don't get from a deck that's all unicorns that you might get from a deck that's other kinds of animals or people. I don't know. So I love it, but I definitely don't need two in my collection right now unless I like hardcore really love them both. And while I think this is super cute, the Rainbow Unicorn Tarot, it wouldn't get a lot of play in my collection, and I know that, so I'm not going to bring it in because that, in my personal opinion, based on how I read and work with my decks, that would be irresponsible. So I'm not going to do it. So that, my friends, concludes today's anti-haul. Anti-haul number 5. I can't believe it. I will try to remember to have a link to the playlist with all my former anti-hauls at the end of this video, so you can check those out if you would like. I will have links to all the decks I talked about down below. Please keep in mind that if you see an Amazon link, that is always on my channel these days going to be an affiliate link, which means I do make a small commission off of those purchases. Never feel any pressure to click on those. Just go to Amazon and like type in the deck that you want if you don't want to click on that link, and I'm completely cool with it. I just like to be transparent that that's what that is. So if it is not an Amazon link, it is not an affiliate link, it's not anything I get any kind of commission or kickback on, and so those are, there's nothing going on there. Okay, so now that I've been super awkward about my affiliate links, I'm going to wrap up this video and possibly have more coffee, although I clearly don't need it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really love doing these anti-hauls. I'm going to try to roll these out a little more often because I know there's been some long gaps between them. So watch for these to come out hopefully a little more frequently. And thank you again so much. Please remember to click like on this video if you enjoyed it, if you had fun here. Comment down below and let me know what you think about these decks. Let each other know what you think about these decks. And if you are purchasing decks that I have anti-hauled, tell me, because I think that's awesome. I love when people come here and they buy the decks that I am not buying, because A, then I can live vicariously through you, and B, I think all of our creators deserve our love and our respect and our attention. So really enjoy that. And finally, click share if you know anybody who wants to watch a tarot deck anti-haul, or subscribe if you're new here and want to hang out with me and watch other long rambly videos like this one. And if you want to book a tarot reading with me, remember that you can do that over at supportivetarot.com. Thanks guys, hope you have a good day or afternoon or evening wherever you might be, and I will talk to you later. Bye!